get yourself together before it's too late.
Good evening, everybody. And I am so terribly happy that I was wrong. What a difference a day makes, doesn't it? Just like the song says. Well, it's Divided We Stand. It's Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good to see everybody. Let's see who's here so far. Bark Eater's here, Midas Lisa, Kim, Karen, Veg. I know Joey's got to be out there somewhere. Hi, Kim. HLS is here. Wowzers. I really do love when I'm wrong and when I have thick skin, because I want to be wrong. Now, I may end up being sort of right, I don't know. Hi, Karen. But I guess Michael Moore was right. Michael Moore was saying that he had a good feel about this. Now, of course, he's from Michigan, and boy, Michigan really whooped up, didn't they? They whooped it up. And what's her name? What is her name? I'm trying to think, Witchner or whatever. But she kicked some ass. And the Democrats won easily. In a state that can get conservative up at the peninsula. So what a wonderful, wonderful night. Now, we're not done. That's the thing. And as the night was going on, even on MSNBC and on CNN, they weren't quite sure what was happening. They still assumed that there was this red wave. Well, it turned out to be kind of like the red wave in Ukraine. It didn't kind of show up in the same way you thought it would. And even to this day, to this moment, things are kind of looking up. Or at least in the sense already we've kind of won. In the sense that there wasn't a red wave, despite the gerrymandering, despite the bullshit. And the bullshit just contains everything, right? Republicans doing anything possible to win, and that includes cheat. There's Joey. And we've been talking about the fact that just the way the system's set up, states like North Dakota and South Dakota, they basically grab 4 senators when they should have 0. Utah. But in the end, even so, with one arm tied behind our backs, it looks like we could still win. Now, right now in Arizona, I believe it's Kelly Masters who, let me see if I can see if I can show you this, okay? Now, you may get some echo in the beginning, so, understand. All right. Oh, yeah, it's Kelly. Okay, her name is, what is her name? Something Kelly. But Masters is the one that's running. I think her name is Kelly Masters, who's running against Kelly. Kelly is winning right now. And he's projected to win. We've got Raphael Warnock, obviously going to have another vote. This is his 4th one now, right? Because he had to have an extra election twice. So it's his 4th time, essentially, in 2 years, in less than 2 years. It'll have to be elected. But that's okay. But what I'm really looking at is this one here, ladies and gentlemen, and that's Nevada. So, is it Catherine Cortez? I don't know if you have to excuse me in the first names. I think it's Adam Laxalt, who's Paul Laxalt's son. Now, she's down by 800 votes or something like that, but there's 6% of the vote left, and a lot of that, let me get my regular mic on. A lot of that voting, I think, will be coming out of Democratic districts or the mail-ins, and mainly from the city. So that looks like we could take it. Now, we can't guarantee everything here because, there'll be a lot of shenanigans. There has to be. After January 6th, you can't take anything for granted. Because these people, all they want to do is win. We're talking about the Republicans. I mean, we all want to win, but they want to do anything to win. But once these tabulations start coming in, and I think they have them all there. They just have to count and make sure. You'll probably see the results on Wednesday, and I'm fine with that. Let's wait. And of course, that's the Senate. So essentially, what's happening now is this. Let me go back to myself here. Essentially, what's happening is this, ladies and gentlemen. After looking at what's happening in Nevada, we could have 50 senators with a D beside it. Okay, so we don't even we wouldn't even technically need Warnock. And something that Hal Sparks said today, I think, is very, very true, is that if we do indeed win in Nevada, and it looks like it can happen, and they'll challenge it and they'll have to recount the votes 8,000 times, and that'll be a pain in the ass. But the result will be the same in the end, unless the Supreme Court somehow, gets prodded by Trump. I know it sounds like a conspiracy, but these people have been pulling shit all along, so who knows? But let's go back to this. If we win in Nevada, that means that Georgia doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but not as much. We still control. So maybe some of these Republicans don't show up, and just enough that it makes it easier. Now, you hope that the opposite doesn't happen. You hope that that some Democrats won't. You don't want that to happen. You hope they come out and they have to vote, because we need 51 because of Manchin and Sinema. You just don't know. I mean, in fact, I keep thinking, what will Manchin do, or even Sinema? Will they switch parties? They certainly vote with Republicans in most cases, but as you can see it now, that looks pretty good. Now the House. Last week's show on Friday, it didn't look good. It looked like they were going to win a lot of seats, meaning the Republicans. And even as late as yesterday, or even this morning on MSNBC, they were predicting maybe the Republicans would have 220 and the Democrats 215. And of course, that would add up to 435. But that's not even locked in. Let me show you. Really, really interesting. All right, I'm going to have to switch screens here. All right, hopefully you can see this. If you can't see this or you can't hear me, just tell me. Now look at these races. Now this is an interesting one in Alaska because they essentially have that IRV voting. Peltola, of course, she won that election a few months back. And the way they count these up, who knows what would happen if she doesn't get 50%. They may have to do the IRV voting, but she still looks pretty good here. We have in Arizona, Hodge is up right now. Engel in Arizona is down, but look, he's only roughly 1,000 votes away, and 9% of the vote is left. Now, I don't know specifically about Arizona, but I do remember during the presidential election in Philadelphia that those mail-in ballots came later. The overseas ballots came in later. So it tends in the past to help the Democrats. Let's look at California. Okay. The Republicans up by 10,000 votes, and that's a lot, but only 50% of the vote is collected there. Okay. So we could say that it looks good for the Republican, but again, that's only 50% of the vote. Again, California, we have the Democrat ahead here, 38% of the vote. Now, if I'm going to be fair, I have to say, well, only 38% of the vote is there. The Democrats ahead. We can't really say. Who knows? This one here in District 13 in California, we're talking a matter of like 50 or 60 votes. Only 46% of the vote is in. District 21, Democrat ahead, only 50% of the votes. In this one, the Republican is ahead, but only 40% of the votes, District 22. And then here in District 27, it looks bad because the Democrats down by 15,000 votes. Right. By the way, I'm just seeing my first comment here from Veg. Right. So a classic example of the cheating, and it's kind of like the legal cheating, right? Kemp throws out 100,000 mail-in ballots. I don't know what happened there. I'll keep clicking on, so if you see something's kind of funky, it could be Facebook shutting it down because it hears some music, and the music is non-copyrighted. It's from Facebook, but for whatever reason, it picks it up and tries to shut it down. So it might happen again. All right. So what am I saying here? MSNBC, CNN just recently reduced that number from 220 to 219 to 217. We're not even sure yet, where that's going to fall. So it might happen. It's possible that the Democrats will hold on to some power. And even if they don't, even if the Republicans win the House, it's so close, there could be an errant representative who, because of his district or her district, votes with the Democrats. It's possible. But that being said, it's a lot better news today than it was on Friday. I had every reason to be worried. And I've even seen the optimism basically on Facebook. And even those who, the fence sitters, I've seen some fence sitters say, take some jabs at Biden, and they've got nothing better to do but to, take a shot at Biden. We're dealing with essentially fascists. And the best thing they can do is take shots at Biden. Nothing will make them happy unless, they make a killing on the stock market. So these are the people who just don't give a shit. They think about themselves. They're not pragmatic. This is something Dave and I have pushed all along. There has to be pragmatism, or you don't get anything done. Nothing gets fucking done. Nothing. So out of nowhere, we have this kind of optimism. And because I'm somewhat pessimistic, maybe, again, we won't get everything we want. But then what happens after? Well, Trump's trying to delay all of these different proceedings by the January 6th committee, but he can't avoid the DOJ. And will Merrick Garland decide to indict? He should. I think at this point, you have to go all out in this thing because everything's at risk. Democracy's at risk. The planet's at risk. The planet's at risk. Europe needs a stable American governing body. They're going to need us for Ukraine. They're going to need us for Europe. They're going to need us for climate change. That cannot happen with the Republican Party. And if you are a person who cares about the climate, who really does care, and despite the fact that you're not going to get everything you want from the Democrats, you know the right thing. You know the right thing to do. Otherwise, it proves you have no skin in the game. It's a critical mass. So, in this situation, we can't rest on our laurels. We came out and voted. Those people who gave a shit, those pragmatic people, those people who cared about Roe versus Wade, those people who cared about democracy being lost, those people who cared about getting rid of these schmucks, they came out and they voted. Thankfully. We could have used more. And yes, again, the Republicans have always had that advantage of these bullshit states. I mentioned on a video on iGeneralist channel this week. You know, of course, North Dakota has 4 senators. And there are fewer people in all of North and South Dakota compared to that of South Jersey, where I live. Oh, speaking of which, a student from my old high school is now, well, he was elected to Congress in the 3rd District in New Jersey, Andy Kim. And he got reelected. Now, here's the unfortunate news locally here. Jefferson Van Drew, and yes, he was named after Jefferson Davis, which tells you a lot. Jeff Van Drew won again. Easily. Something like 31,000 to 18,000, whatever. He basically got 62% of the vote. Didn't get my vote, didn't get my wife's vote, didn't get my mother-in-law's vote, and many of my colleagues didn't vote for him. But there are lots and lots of people who did. And a lot of them really are. There were a lot of people in the 1960s who couldn't find work in West Virginia, and they came up to this area. And there's an area called Cape May and Cape May County in South Jersey. And they vote like they're from Alabama. They really do. And that's why I have to be very, very careful when I start questioning people from, say, Alabama and Arkansas and Mississippi and Florida and say, why can't you get your shit together, you know? Because you come back at me and say, well, how about your guy? He's worse than all of them. And he is. You'd be correct. If we had an election just on my street, I'd lose. You know what I mean? So I have some things to show you today. Yeah, some things I find kind of interesting. You know, I'm thinking again about how these victories are not only a victory for the country and for people like you and me, but it's really a victory for the world, because we have to see this thing as an entirety. And we're going to have to deal with these right-wing autocrats, whether it's the Trumps, the Bolsonaros, the Putins, Viktor Orban. They're a real danger. Because once they get control, they don't give it up. I've said that before. But let's just take a look. I thought this was kind of interesting. I thought we should take a look at this, just about the world in general. Let me see if I can let's see. There we go. All right. Now, let's look at this, because I thought this is interesting. This isn't political, but it has meaning. And it says, what if 100 people live on the earth? Just 100. And we're going to look at, based on the current population and the demographics of the world, what would it look like if 100 people, only 100 people lived on the planet? All right. So let's check this out. So to start off, before I turn the video on, you would say roughly you'd have 50 women and 50 men. And that, of course, is different from country to country, but generally that would be the case. So let's look. All right. I'm going to stop this from time to time because I find it fascinating. So if you had 100 people, Americans would only represent 14% of that 100. And even then, you'd have to split up North America and South America. The majority of people would be Asian, 11 would be Europeans. I mean, you could see it for yourself. But it gives you some scope of who we are. And this is why I say that you can't just blame people like Biden. You're negotiating with the rest of the world here. You're dealing with China. You're dealing with Russia. And you look at that. 14 of the 100 are Americans. And of those 14, 6 are from South America. So we're talking about the Canadians and citizens of the United States and Mexico. We're talking 8 of that 100. This is what we're dealing with. There are more Africans than North and South Americans. We are not the ones to start dictating everything. And if we do, let's do it for the betterment of the world. All right. So again, if 100 people lived on the planet, now most of us are between probably 40 and 70 on this show. And I'm 62. And when you look at this, the majority of the people on the planet are between 0 and 54. And the rest of us, that circle's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Again, this is just for scope. Now we talk about religions here. 33% are Christian, 21% are Muslim, 14 are Hindus, Buddhists are 6, other religions, and non-religious. Now that, of course, is where I would be. You have your choice where you'd sit on that. So the majority of people who are religious are Christians.
We won Nevada.
We did. Which one? The Senate?
I think so.
All right. I think I have late breaking news here. So I'm going to have to put that on hold because I think we have some good news I was just talking about. All right. Let's go back. Oh, we do have good news, ladies and gentlemen. It just keeps coming in. Woo! Now, we certainly are divided, but we're standing tall now. So let's look here. Let's get this out. And there is exactly what I said. These votes were coming in from urban areas, Democratic areas, and is it Christine Cortez Masto? I don't know her first name. I'm not sure. But there you go. She's projected to win. Now, Adam Laxalt's not going to like that because his dad was Paul Laxalt. So he's not as successful as Daddy was. You know. So now what do the Republicans do? I don't know. Let's hope they don't go nuts. But you see what that means, folks? Do you see what that means now? That changes everything. Now we have 50 already. We have control of the Senate. All right, maybe we're there. Let's hope. But anyway, as I was saying, now that Cortez Masto has been projected as a winner, it looks like the election for Raphael Warnock will be a lot more interesting, because now there won't be as much skin in the game. Now you can bet your Trumper neighbor down the way, and mine too, will be very, very upset tonight. Because they wanted it all. They wanted it all. And you know, they can't even guarantee they're going to win the House now. And that's why I don't want to hear anybody talk shit about Democrats tonight. Because that means, you know, if you look at these races, that means people got their ass out and voted. And you know all Republicans vote. You know that. You had to get out to vote. We are the only ones that can stop people like Trump. And we did. I mean, he's not president now. That's the last thing we have, and that's that power to vote. And I revere that. You know, when you think of all the people who were denied the ability to vote, and they made it difficult for them, poll taxes, just trying to infuriate people. And they got their ass out. Then and now. So let's see what happens in those remaining districts in California. We might be able to hold on. And that would burn their ass up. And I don't know what you think, and I will check what you're thinking out there. I haven't really looked. I've only saw one thing. Yes, I know, Joey, it's stalling. I think it has something to do with Facebook. Okay? But we're on. Okay? Either that or the Republicans are after me. But if we should take the House, hold on to it, then they know that even with the cheat, even with the gerrymandering, even with the bullshit with North Dakota and South Dakota, even with that bullshit, even though they only really have 45% of the vote in this country, even so, we still win. And with that son of a bitch Trump, sooner or later they've got to say, this guy's got to go, because we can't win. The only way they can win is to steal an election, which they tried to do. But we got out and voted. We voted, and we had the power to change things, and we did. And this is why I say you have to go out and vote. And these people who think both parties are the same, you're fucking nuts. And that's why I say these people that do that, essentially they're almost like nihilists or anarchists. They just don't seem to get it. Either that or they're closet Trumpers. Let's go back to the world, okay? Because I think it's important to see something like this. All right. Okay, so there you see the religions. And the only thing that's really interesting about this, let's go back to the religions for 1 second here. I think it's worth looking at. Christianity is the dominant religion in the world. But, again, think big picture. If this were IRV voting, we don't know that it would be voted in as like the top religion. It's 33 out of 100. And who knows what will happen over the next 100 years if we have 100 years. But it gives you a bigger picture. I mean, if you lived in some place in the southeast in the Bible Belt, you'd think that 70% of the world is Christian, but it's not. And that's not putting Christians down. I'm just saying you have to look at the world as a much bigger piece. We move on. All right. Let's see what languages people speak. If 100 people lived on the planet, 12 speak Chinese, 6 Spanish, 5 English, 4 Hindi, 3 Arabic. The rest, I'm sure, a multitude of languages. So English, 5 out of 100, 5% of the world speaks English. What we're doing right now, that there's 95% or the others. So they're not watching this. And there you go. The rest speak 6,500 languages. If anything, I think we become ethnocentric because the power of the media, just the power of things we see on television, it almost insulates us from the rest of the world. But it's not the way the world is. And people, that's like people who say America's the greatest country. Well, you can say that, but if you haven't visited other countries, you wouldn't know, right? How about if you took a trip to Switzerland? You say, hey, this is kind of cooler. It's just like holding up the number 1 foam finger at a game, and you don't know, you might lose the game. You might not be number 1. And it's obnoxious, too, to say we're number 1. Number 1 what? Just bullshit. We're just another country. If 100 people lived on the earth, 86 can read and write. I guess that's better than back in the day. 14 can't. $15 spend $2 a day. $56 spend, I can't even read that, 92 to 100? Or $2 to $10, I'm sorry. 13 spend 10 to 20, 20 to 50, and 1 spends more than, well, let's go back to that, than $90 a day. So most people don't have a lot of money. And one person would control half of the money. Well, that's nothing new, is it? Those are your Randolph Hearst and John Paul Getty of the past. That's obscene. A waste of resources. All right, let's check this out. 21 are overweight. Ooh. By the way, I lost 40 pounds, so pretty soon I won't be overweight, hopefully. 63 are normal weight. I'm getting closer to that. 15 are underweight, underfed, and 1 is starving. 15 underfed, and 1 is starving, and 21 are overfed. %87 have clean water, 13 don't, like Flint, Michigan. Oh, that shouldn't happen in the United States. 77 have somewhere to live and 23 don't. 44 have the internet and 56 don't. 75 have a phone and 25 don't. 7 to 10 college and 93 didn't. So there you go. The way we look at things, and I'm talking about myself too. You know, if you grow up in the United States or just in North America in general, because I assume that